to GirlDad. I'm Abigail Frechette.
And I'm Peter Frechette.
And we're outside again.
Yes, Abby's home again. Very exciting. Big reason why you were home.
Because we just went to see Noah Kahan. If you're watching, we're both wearing Noah Kahan t-shirts.
Yes, you got to get the swag. The whole merch thing was insane.
Yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, 2 nights of Noah Kahan at Fenway Park, and actually turned out to be the impetus for this episode. But before we get into that,
it's time for sports time.
Time for sports time. Whee!
So we've got a couple things. Starting off, the Red Sox.
Oh my God! It's we've been complaining about them all year, and all of a sudden they've won 10 out of 12. They
swept the Yankees.
They're trying to get back in the hunt. Although, honestly, we're recording this on Thursday morning, so by the time you hear this on Friday morning, they will probably have lost to the White Sox, and this will all be meaningless. But who knows?
It's
at least
fun right now.
May have saved our summer. So exciting. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and go Peyton Tolley.
Love him. Yeah. Great mustache.
Another thing with the sports that's going on right now that actually appears to be lost in the shuffle is Wimbledon, one of the 4 major tennis tournaments of the year. I honestly don't know what's going on, really. I know that Djokovic is in the semifinals against Sinner, but for the men, and the women's semifinals are taking place right now as we record, so not sure what's happening, but
someone did the surfing soccer celebration. I saw that.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Soccer? What? What's soccer? Is that happening right now?
The World Cup's still happening.
The World Cup.
We're going to briefly talk about this because we do have another episode to wrap up the World Cup, but we did just want to talk about the curse that the president put on the U.S. team.
Which leads into also not breaking news, which is, as I put in our show rundown, the president is a boob.
Well, I just think, it's the president's fault, but it's also FIFA's fault. And if you listen to our first, pre-World Cup episode, you'll know how corrupt FIFA is as an organization, and maybe you will not be so surprised by their choice to love another corrupt man.
Yeah, it's just...
It just sets a bad precedent, I think, of because we were talking about this a little bit. I think there's when American football players started kneeling during the national anthem in relationship to the Black Lives Matter movement, there was all this discussion of sports is getting too political, and to me that was never a politics thing, and it had nothing to actually do with the sports at play.
It was a free speech thing.
Yeah, and then this is what happens when sports actually gets too political, because you're involving political figures in the decision making of sports, and that's not okay.
And I know that it will surprise you to learn that perhaps the president hadn't thought it all the way through, but by becoming involved in the way that he did, he made it a complete no-win situation for the U.S. men's team.
Absolutely.
Because if they won the game, people were going to be ticked off that he got involved and got them to have everybody play. If they lost the game, it is what it is now.
Yeah.
And if he had just shut up and let them play, and they play a man with one of their best players not playing, and they actually come out and play great, and win the game, it would have been the best thing possible. It would have been, do you believe in miracles, which everyone was trying to sell on the country prior to that game.
Yeah.
And no miracles happening. So
I think there's also, we talked about this a little bit, where, I don't think Trump is also that used to people listening to him that way. So, this would have worked really well for Trump if they didn't do what he wanted, because he could complain about doing it, say, I tried to do this thing, guys. I'm awesome. Look at me.
Absolutely.
But then, obviously, Infantino is just, gonna suck his dick. So.
Okay, let's not.
I'm sorry.
You seem a little tired from the last couple of nights. Are you okay?
I'm tired.
So now on to our main topic, which kicks off Noah Kahan, 2 nights. For those who may listen to this and not know who Noah Kahan is he a Vermont native who lived in Watertown, or a Watertown native who moved to Vermont?
I think that one.
And
also, if you are someone who listens to this podcast and doesn't know who Noah Kahan is, please email us. I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a very good point. At girldadpcast@gmail.com. But so Noah Kahan probably came on big on the scene 3 or 4 years ago, and my question that I was asking and why I wanted to talk about is whether Noah Kahan is a folk artist or a rock star. And I think we'll discuss whether it's possible to be both, but I wanted to sort of talk about the evolution of folk music and sort of how that has kind of led to what I believe that Noah Kahan is a folk artist, but wanted to see how it gets there. So talking about, so oddly, not oddly, but uniquely, this is an episode that I have done research on, and laying all my cards on the table. I did get a little help from AI, which Abby was not happy with, and yes, we will be doing an AI episode in the future in which we will discuss its pros and cons, but not Noah Kahan.
No.
And also not today. You like that? Yeah, that was good, huh? Wow. So folk music is, for the most part, in my mind, storytelling.
Yeah.
I think it goes way back, but sort of the pre-modern, if you will, folk artists, it's like a Woody Guthrie or Pete Seeger.
Well, I think that's something like I think about with folk music is that there's almost like, when you say that, there's almost like two aspects to it. Like I think of two can be connect, like almost a Venn diagram, where there's like the acoustic, not country but country adjacent sound of it, and then there's just the like storytelling kind of like, I would say like middle class, lower class kind of, sometimes has a political leaning feel to it, but just like telling the truth of situations through like personal stories. And I think obviously there's like that piece in the middle where those overlap, but I think you have artists that I would say are folk artists that don't necessarily sound the way you would traditionally think of folk music, and then I think you have artists that sound like folk artists but maybe don't spend as much time on the lyricism of their work, and like it's a little more in the vein of like some pop music stuff where it's like we took the sound of folk music but just the lyricism isn't really the same. Because like an example for me is like Sam Fender, who's a newer artist. He's from like the north of England, and lower middle class background, kind of writes all these songs about, he's Noah Kahan adjacent again, I'd say, but he has very much a like rock sound, like it's a lot more hardcore, but it's very, if you like played any of his songs acoustically, you'd instantly be like, that's a very traditional folk artist, you know what I mean?
I think one thing about sort of the evolution of folk music, going back to songs like This Land Is Your Land, and some of the early Bob Dylan stuff, and the Peter, Paul and Mary, Joan Baez, a lot of those songs were very much thematic and broad towards more societal messages, as opposed to the kind of the direction that it's gone, and getting to Noah Kahan, it's become much more personal, and it's personal stories about their own individual, and of course people can relate to those songs, but they are personal stories. And one thing that has come up for me in listening to Noah Kahan, and I've bugged both of my daughters about this, is the comparison with a guy that I listened to when I was 11 or 12 years old. It was Jim Croce.
Yeah.
And the lyrics and the messaging to me were very similar. The music, the Noah Kahan music is much bigger than it was. Jim Croce was very simple. And who knows, he died in a plane crash, and who knows where his music would have gone, but he was basically one of those people that just kind of came out of the coffee shop and doing open mic nights or whatever, and hit with a couple of songs, and was huge in 1972. And that's kind of where I see folk music having gone. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, that makes sense.
The other guy that I'll always, as everyone knows, is a favorite of mine is Bruce Springsteen, who is obviously a rock and roll star, a rock star, but also has a great affinity for folk music and
100%.
has not only delved into folk music, but has released folk albums, so that it's not, he's actually kind of crossing genres within his own music, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is something I was kind of paying attention to last night, because you mentioned the comparison with Bruce Springsteen. I've compared Sam Fender to Bruce Springsteen a lot, because I think, again, like, if you strip back his music, it's all storytelling. It's all from this, like, working class kind of situation. But I also think there's something that Bruce Springsteen does really well, which is playing off of the connection between folk music and blues music. And that's where I think you end up with, like, really good rock folk music, because it's like, we're gonna have horns, so the jazz and the blues influence there. And that's something that Noah Kahan did last night, or both nights, I guess this is something he's doing on tour, was for his encore, he brings out 3 horn players. And I think it makes, again, like, the sound bigger, but it doesn't, like, on the surface, if you're listening to the Noah Kahan album and you're like, where would he put horns in this? You'd be like, this is kind of weird. But if you actually think about it, it fits really well, because they all came from this same kind of, like, they all started from this, you know, African American blues music space that then white people made that folk music. So but blues with jazz, so there is this kind of very, like, there's synergy between all of those things, so it does work really well.
But you also, with Noah Kahan, you have that whole bluegrass part too, and a lot of banjo and fiddle, and it's just, you're right, it's all coming together.
Yeah.
And I also, just because I had favorites as in growing up, I don't want to leave out Simon and Garfunkel, because I think they were helped to take folk more mainstream.
Yeah. It's also, I just thought of this when we were talking about it, kind of like, I think that we haven't really discussed any women in folk, except, I mean, you mentioned Joan, but, like, I think that what boygenius is doing, so that's Phoebe Bridgers, Lucy Dacus, and oh god, what's her name? Whatever, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All of them have kind of different sounds in their solo work, but their work together is very folk, in a very traditional, like, you know, not a lot of, it's not big, it's very, like, kind of stripped back, but again, the lyricism is very, like, connected to a certain place and certain honesty. I think I do think with, as far as, like, sound goes, women artists who are doing folk tend to lean more into, they're sticking to the more, like, traditional sound of it, but they might be still following into the like more personal stories that then are like a case study for like the larger issues facing the country and stuff like that. But yeah, I just wanted to add that in.
No, that's fine. The other thing that came out of my conversation with Claude on AI, I know it frustrates you.
It's okay.
But this made a lot of sense in thinking about growing up listening to Peter, Paul and Mary, Simon and Garfunkel. Those people had songs that were so learnable is not the right word.
Yeah,
but like you would sing, if I had a hammer, you would everybody knew the song and everybody would sing along. And the last 2 nights you had 30,000 people singing along to every song.
Yeah.
And people have latched on to that, and so it's like a giant campfire song, I guess is what I'm getting at with that, and which is great.
Well, I think it's like, because I think, so for my generation, there's almost like this, there's this running joke that like, you move into a college dorm room and the kid with the guitar is just going to play Wonderwall all the time. I feel like that may have changed now that we have more artists who are more like folky adjacent, where it's like they're going to play Noah Kahan. Like they're, I don't know, just
or they're going to go back and play stuff from my time. I just remember walking across prep school campuses and on a warm spring morning where dorm windows are open, and I was 50 something years old, and I'm hearing the music coming out of the dorm, and it's the same music that I was listening to 30 years earlier. So it's good that there is other stuff coming along that people are getting excited about. Any other thoughts on folk music?
I mean, I think there's also kind of this broader thing of like, again, we've talked about some of the like cross-cultural stuff, and we recently also saw Mumford and Sons, and I think they are in a lot of ways a folk band, but they also have like a lot of like Irish influence, kind of like the pub, but that's again but like the
kind
same
of the same family
thing.
Absolutely.
But when we were talking about this, I remembered we recently saw, or like a year ago, saw this movie, The Ballad of Wallace Island, which is one of those movies where like it's about fake musicians, but they write a whole album for it, and it's very folk album. But the movie is kind of in its own way like very representative of folk music, because it's like storytelling, and it's kind of like it gets to the vulnerability of people and the way we struggle with things, but then the way we can come together, and kind of like the beauty of those things together, and that like humans are flawed and all these things. But I just wanted to mention that too.
And as you mentioned Mumford and Sons, I do want to Marcus Mumford actually wrote about Noah Kahan for a Time 100 issue, and I just have a quote here. Musically, he brings us closer to our humanity in the same way some of the great 60s folk songwriters did, pairing lyrics set in a particular space and time with traditionally infused pop melodies like Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell at their best. That's pretty high praise.
Absolutely. I think there's kind of, it's interesting because I think Mumford and Sons are in certain ways a little bit of a, not an exception, because there's other bands like them, but so going back to kind of what I was saying before about how like there's these two sides in the Venn diagram. I think when Mumford and Sons became popular, there was a lot of what people have dubbed as stomp clap music being very popular, which again took a lot of folk sounds, but kind of, I mean, and you can argue that people like the lyrics. I personally felt like a lot of the lyrics were kind of just like, okay, we needed words to the song a little more.
Part of the melody.
Yeah, it was kind of that, like, there was almost like a revival of that kind of like folk style of music in like 2010 to 2015 a little bit, and I think Mumford and Sons got popular in that time, but I would say they were the best band to come out of that, if that makes sense. Like, they were the most well-rounded. They definitely fit the genre, but their lyrics were a little more, I don't know, they were just better.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a reason why they have continued to be successful, where some of those artists have kind of gone with the fad. But I think it's interesting that, like, you would have, so Noah Kahan's the exact same age as me, so he would have been listening to that stuff like in high school. So I think it's kind of interesting, like, to think of that as almost an influence on his music in a way, but then he went back and probably had the influence of, like, the people we're talking, like, you know, Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, all those kind of people as well, which is where, like, the lyricism for him may have come from, and even, like, Bruce Springsteen, the storytelling. Like, I think that's kind of an interesting, just, like, the almost pattern that folk music had, where it, like, came back aesthetically, but maybe not lyrically, and now it feels like it's coming back more lyrically. There's some of the aesthetics there, but it's a little more, like you said, it's more campfire-y than kind of just, like, stripped back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that struck me last night is, or the last two nights, as we watched virtually the same show, 2 nights, or 2 or 3 songs that had changed, but the entire show, he's got, I think, what'd you say, 3.5 or 4 albums out?
Yeah.
And all but one song were from
for the most part.
were from the last 2 albums.
Yeah.
And that reminded me of Springsteen in that Born to Run was his 3rd album. He had a following, but not a huge following, until that album came out.
Yeah.
And that sort of shot him into the stratosphere. And I kind of feel like Noah Kahan has gone the same way. He kind of came out of it just like a TikTok thing, right? And people discovered him that way.
Yeah, I think Stick Season got, and it was also kind of the same thing that happened with, like, Chapel Roan, where the song had been out for a little bit longer and then it was like all of a sudden I guess it was TikTok, I don't know exactly, but yeah, it just was like everywhere. And, like, Phoebe obviously has known about Noah Kahan the longest of all of us, and then I knew about him before that, but, like, it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
What's happening?
And I will say, I've now seen him 4 times, I think, or 4 or 5 times. And the thing that struck me when I first saw him, and having listened to his music in order to prepare to go see him, I kind of felt that I was shocked by how much of a rock show his shows are, compared to listening to his albums.
Yeah.
And I mean, all of the instrumentation is there on the albums, but it's just not the full concert sound that you get, and those guys jam.
Oh yeah.
And it's awesome. It's a great show, and so if Noah Kahan is coming to a baseball stadium near you, you should get tickets, and you should go.
Good luck with that, but
yeah,
you should go.
Exactly. Good luck. If Phoebe hasn't bought them all already.
Yeah. No, I think it's definitely kind of like, I like the campfire metaphor, like you said, and I do think there is something, he's definitely very popular, but I mean, there's something about the New Englandness of it all that here it's like he's God, right? And I think in a similar way to the way like New Jersey, Bruce Springsteen's God, like that. It's great to have that kind of like hometown hero that's just also seemingly like a good person and like, you know, is telling these stories that everyone can relate to on a broad spectrum, but like there's like specific references that you're like, I have felt that exact thing, or I have said that about this area, or I mean, there's the one song, New Perspective. I remember in that song he mentions the intersection getting a target. I was there when said intersection got said target, and I remember being like, what is happening to this town? Like, what's going on? So it's like you have that kind of aspect of being able to relate on a really personal level, and having that, like, you know, I mean, because I grew up in New England kind of attitude about things, and that it's okay to have these bad feelings and bad emotions, and it's like, but still there's almost like a positive that comes out of all of that at the end of the day. Yeah, it's
but you mentioned New Perspective, which was the last song that he did in his main set before he left, and then came on and did an encore. And I just remember he leading into that song, he said, okay, you guys are from New England, and nobody, and something along the lines of nobody holds a grudge like people in New England, and channels their anger better than people in New England. And he goes, I want you to do that right now. And then he did New Perspective. And then the song ended. He left the stage, and the crowd started a Yankees suck chant.
It was great. It was so
perfect.
Good.
And it was
so good.
And that was last night.
Yeah,
but the first night, I don't remember that happening.
No, they didn't do a Yankees suck chant. I think the first night he said something along the lines of like, a lot of artists come and they say they want to make places positive. I'd like to keep New England the way it is. So keep being you guys. It was like, yeah. I think there's also, this is very Noah Kahan specific, diving a little further into the albums. So I think there's his earlier albums I think are phenomenal. I think there's a lot you can relate to, but I think there's something particularly special about Sixth Season and him being so vulnerable with the things that have happened to him personally, like sharing those emotions. But it's a very personal album in a lot of ways. He's talking a lot about himself. And I think there was a kind of concern, perhaps, of how do you follow that up?
I think that was a concern on his part.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think like a lot of fans were like, and the Sixth Season...
How much anxiety and depression can you talk about?
Yeah, but also to use the Taylor Swift thing, the Sixth Season era lasted a very long time because he released Sixth Season, then he released Sixth Season Forever, and then he released another version.
And how many duets did he do?
Well, that was, so it was, we had that thing going. There was a lot of momentum behind it. And then to follow it up with The Great Divide, which is an album that is still very personal and is talking a lot about things that I think for him are about fame, but are very relatable because it's the symbolism of The Great Divide, there's a couple different things. One is the twin state, the New Hampshire-Vermont thing, but there's also...
So The Great Divide is the Connecticut River.
No, but that's what he is using it. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. But there's also this kind of metaphor of him being famous now and leaving behind certain people and the way they see him. But it's still really relatable because it's everybody grows up in different ways, and sometimes you stay friends with the people you were friends with in childhood. Sometimes you have tough family dynamics and you can't be there, and it is like a divide, and it is kind of this like not everybody stays in their hometown. And I think that's again kind of this very New England thing, but can apply to a lot of other places, is like a lot of people from New England, you get like these hometowns where it's the same population, like families who have lived there forever, but then you get every once in a while like someone moving to Boston, someone moving to New York. And so it's like, do those people see themselves as better than me because they left here, and like those kinds of things. And obviously he's singing from the vulnerable perspective of, I'm in this really weird place where like now I'm famous, but you can still relate to it, which I think is something that Taylor Swift has done well in the past, but has not done as well as recently, of like, it's almost like, girl, we don't know what it's like to be you. Like, we don't, like, we're not you.
Yeah.
And I think he has done that really well.
Yeah.
Not to compare them, but
the
like,
fact
I
that
think that's
he's singing in Orbiter about being on the red carpet and not winning an award or whatever. I mean, what could be more personal than that happened to him? So
and crying on live TV doesn't make you a hero, but it's like you still get the roots of like those feelings of like, you're not better than me, like that perspective, or the other perspective of, this was just a hard thing I had to go through and these people supported me through it. So yeah, I think it's really cool what he was able to do with that, because I don't know that everyone could do that successfully. But yeah.
Awesome.
Anything else you want to talk about?
As far as folk rock is concerned? I don't think so. I think I wanted to talk about this, and I appreciate you letting me do so.
Yeah.
And anytime I can talk about Jim Croce, I'm happy to do so. I do want to talk about the main impetus between my two comparisons of Jim Croce to Noah Kahan, and the two songs that struck me were Operator and Downfall.
Oh.
Operator by Jim Croce, Downfall by Noah Kahan.
Yeah.
And both of them basically are, to me, talking about they're both talking about the love of their life, who they just can't get over.
Yeah.
And in Downfall, Noah Kahan sings about the fact that he's rooting for her downfall because if she fails, she'll come home.
Yeah.
And in Operator, he's talking to the operator about trying to get in touch to let the people know that he's okay, even though as he's talking to the operator, it's very clear that he's not.
Right. Great song.
Great song.
Yeah.
And so
I think there's probably, if you like went through the discography of Jim Croce, Noah Kahan, Bruce Springsteen, some of these other people we've talked about, there's probably a lot of overlapping themes of like the way to tell a story, and kind of the like, because that's more about the story itself of the song, of like not being able to get over someone, but the way you tell a story. Because a lot of this album too, I noticed he's writing songs about himself from another person's perspective that he's making up, kind of. And I think that's something that a lot of folk artists do. Not necessarily about themselves, but writing as not themselves.
Right, as a character. Which all of Bruce Springsteen's
absolutely,
is that.
Absolutely.
And I just want to end with my favorite Noah Kahan line.
Yes.
Which is, your tire tracks and one pair of shoes.
Yeah.
Talking about someone being gone.
Yeah.
And love that. Anyway. We're now at Smile of the Week, and
no, I have one.
I feel like I've just been talking about mine the whole time here.
I mean, that is obviously a big one. I have one from last night, actually.
Oh, okay. All right.
My Smile of the Week was Dad asking me to explain The Real Housewives of Rhode Island to him. This is so I have stopped watching reality television for my mental health, but I am still listening to all of my reality television podcasts, so I still am. Don't worry, guys. If you ask me questions, I know what's going on. But, because I need my community still from it, that was the positive, but I just can't watch these women scream at each other anymore. But anyways, but you being like, all these people in my life are watching The Real Housewives of Rhode Island, and I gotta know what's going on. Like, I gotta understand what is happening with this. So I'm gonna give a brief breakdown for everybody right now. Not of the plot. Brief. The reason that Real Housewives of Rhode Island is successful is because both of the other versions of the East Coast shows have fallen off. Real Housewives of New Jersey is, in my opinion, should be done. They should just replace it with Rhode Island. And New York, the revival, it's a little fun, but it's not what it was. And this is a bunch of straight talking women. Yes, they all look exactly the same, that's fine. But they also are in the age of the post-Potomac Real Housewives, which is Potomac, Salt Lake City, and now Rhode Island, where it's like, these women are starting out with the knowledge of how to produce these shows and what to share and how to share it well, and I just think it works much better than the older shows trying to do that. It's kind of crazy. One of the people was a contestant on The Bachelor, so you know she's got some interesting stuff. But yeah, it's I think it makes sense that it was successful the way.
Well, having spent most of the 80s in Rhode Island, mm-hmm. I was curious about it, and so then I reached out to my friend Lisa Zanecchia, who I worked with at the Big East, and who is a Rhode Island native, and I was just like, I wonder if Lisa knows any of these Real Housewives.
Yeah.
And so I texted her last night, and she basically said, no, I don't, but one of the husbands grew up on the next block from me. My brother met somebody else, and so even though she doesn't know them, it was the perfect Rhode Island story,
which is
that everybody knows each other.
It's like you could never do a Real Housewives of Boston. I don't think it would work, but this is perfect because it has that kind of small town.
That's Providence.
Feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Well. Thank you all for indulging us in this. I think this was very fun. We will be back next week, I think, with an interview.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have an interview for you next week, which could be very exciting, especially with some news that came out of New York City this week about buildings collapsing.
Yeah.
They haven't collapsed, but
well, it's
you never know.
We'll see what happens.
So yeah, absolutely.
But if you have anyone you would like us to interview, if you have anything you'd like us to talk about, maybe a different genre of music we should dive into.
Something else I know very little about. I'd be happy to talk about it.
We would love to do that. You can email us at
GirlDadPcast@gmail.com.
And we will talk to you next week. Bye, Dad.
Bye, girl.
Bye, Dad.
Bye, girl. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed the episode, follow us on your favorite podcast platforms, rate us, and leave a review.